Welcome to the State of Rhode Island CHEMPACK training. Thank you for taking the time to learn about this important response program. This training is provided by the Rhode Island Department of Health's Center for Emergency Preparedness and Response in collaboration with the Center for Emergency Medical Services. Under United States Code, the locations of CHEMPACK containers cannot be shared without a clearly understood need to know. This is because of the very sensitive nature of this program and the importance of maintaining operational security. This course is intended for first responders, hospital personnel, emergency dispatchers, and law enforcement personnel. At the conclusion of this training, you should be able to describe the general nature of the CHEMPACK program, describe the CHEMPACK request process, describe the CHEMPACK deployment process and the role of the cache site, and describe the use of CHEMPACK assets in treating victims of organophosphate exposure or nerve agent exposure. To provide context to the CHEMPACK program, we must first understand the nerve agents, their mechanism of action, and their resultant effects. Next, we will introduce the CHEMPACK program and some of its most important aspects. We will then present how a CHEMPACK is requested, deployed, and used in response to an organophosphate or nerve agent incident. After presenting the CHEMPACK program and how it is activated, we'll look at a scenario in which CHEMPACK is requested to further reinforce the processes for requesting and deployment. First, let's review the characteristics of nerve agents and organophosphates in more detail. Nerve agents are part of the class of compounds called organophosphates. Nerve agents are typically associated with chemical warfare, though the potential for terrorist use exists. Organophosphate pesticides are less toxic organophosphates that are frequently and legally used for commercial and consumer purposes like agriculture and home gardening. Both nerve agents and organophosphate pesticides are highly poisonous chemicals that can cause harm by interfering with critical functions of the nervous system. Nerve agents were developed specifically as chemical weapons. Some nerve agents include tabin, sarin, cyclosarin, V-series agents, and Novichok agents. You may also see nerve agents referred to by their abbreviations, which you can see here in parentheses. Nerve agents that share physical and chemical properties are grouped into series and noted by a letter. For example, tabin, sarin, and cyclosarin are G-series nerve agents. Some notable organophosphate pesticides include malathion, ethifon, and dichlorvos. These organophosphate pesticides are also known by their brand names, which are in parentheses on the slide. The most likely route of exposure for nerve agents or organophosphate pesticides is inhalation or dermal absorption. Normally, nerve cells send information to muscles and organs by chemicals called neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters bind to receptors in the organ or muscle to tell the organ or muscle what to do. After binding to receptors, neurotransmitters are broken down by an enzyme so that they cannot send any more information to the organ or muscle. Organophosphate pesticides can block the enzymes that break down neurotransmitters. As a result, there is an excess or buildup of neurotransmitters sending information to muscles and organs. This buildup causes prolonged stimulation of the affected muscles and organs, and we see the characteristic signs and symptoms of exposure to organophosphate pesticides, like wheezing, vomiting, drooling, urination, or sluggishness. This is also known as cholinergic or nerve agent toxidrome. Without treatment, this can cause respiratory failure and death. The graphics on this slide illustrate these biological effects. As previously mentioned, symptoms of exposure to either organophosphate pesticides or nerve agents can include the following: defecation, urination, meiosis, bronchospasm, bradycardia, emesis, lacrimation, lethargy, and salivation. An easy way to remember the symptoms of exposure is through the mnemonics dumbbells or sludgeum. Now that you better understand what nerve agents and organophosphates are, we will discuss the CHEMPACK program and how it's implemented in Rhode Island. The CHEMPACK program is a component of the Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response's Strategic National Stockpile, also known as the SNS. The CHEMPACK program aims to augment the ability of responders to quickly render aid to those exposed to either an intentional or unintentional release of a nerve agent or organophosphate. The CHEMPACK program has been implemented in all 50 states, and its assets are ready to be deployed in response to a chemical nerve agent or organophosphate incident. The Rhode Island Department of Health's Center for Emergency Preparedness and Response oversees the CHEMPACK program's implementation in the state of Rhode Island. In Rhode Island, there are presently 8 CHEMPACK containers storing medical countermeasures strategically positioned at 4 cache sites throughout the state. The contents of these CHEMPACK containers are configured primarily for use by first responders, but can also be used by hospital personnel. Because of operational security implications, locations of cache sites are not shared publicly. Each CHEMPACK cache site in Rhode Island maintains plans and processes to support the rapid deployment of CHEMPACK assets, following a request from the Rhode Island Department of Health. There are regular trainings and exercises based on these plans. CHEMPACK contains 3 main medications: atropine, pralidoxime or 2-PAM, and either diazepam or midazolam. These medications are primarily in auto-injector form. The auto-injectors make it easier to administer precise dosing in a range of settings, like in the field or in a hospital emergency department. The atropine and pralidoxime auto-injectors in the containers are stored separately as individual auto-injectors. The CHEMPACK containers also include multi-dose vials of atropine, pralidoxime, and midazolam. Ancillary supplies are stored in red duffel bags on top of the CHEMPACK containers at each cache site. These duffel bags contain syringes, needles, and sharps containers to support the administration of medication from multi-dose vials. Let's now review the process for requesting CHEMPACK assets. Request for CHEMPACK assets may be initiated by EMS in the field, by hospital personnel, or by the Rhode Island Department of Health. Requesting and deploying CHEMPACK assets is a 6-step process. First, there is the incident recognition and initial request. This is followed by the cache site notification and deployment. Then there is the notification of Rhode Island State Police, followed by interagency notifications. Next, the CHEMPACK is retrieved and delivered. Finally, there is patient care and transport. Prompt recognition of nerve agent or organophosphate exposure is critical to ensure proper care. For this reason, it's important to be familiar with the signs and symptoms of nerve agent exposure we already reviewed. If nerve agent or organophosphate exposure is suspected, first responders and/or hospital personnel should contact the Center for Emergency Preparedness and Response at the Rhode Island Department of Health at 401-222-6911. Requests for CHEMPACK assets should include the following information: location of the incident staging area, and an estimated number of casualties. Once the Center for Emergency Preparedness and Response, or CEPR, receives a request for CHEMPACK assets, an established process will be followed to make initial internal notifications. A cache site will be selected based on the incident's location, number of casualties, and other considerations. CEPR will notify the cache site of the situation and of the need to deploy CHEMPACK assets. CEPR will also confirm the cache site's pickup location during this initial notification. The cache site will then activate its internal CHEMPACK deployment plan to begin the process of accessing the CHEMPACK containers and deploying assets. Upon receiving a request for CHEMPACK, the cache site will immediately access the CHEMPACK and prepare the requested assets for retrieval. Please note that a cache site cannot deny a request for CHEMPACK deployment. In alignment with the cache site's CHEMPACK deployment plan, the cache site's pharmacy should be notified to access the container keys. The CHEMPACK storage area should be accessed, and the requested number of CHEMPACK containers are then opened. The containers themselves should not be moved. Instead, the assets are removed from the CHEMPACK container, and along with the ancillary supplies stored in the red duffel bags on top of the containers, are brought to the cache site's designated pickup location. A transfer of custody form is also started by the cache site. While this is happening, CPR will contact the Rhode Island State Police to request resources to deploy to the cache site to retrieve CHEMPACK assets and deliver them to the requesting party. Once CHEMPACK deployment has been set into motion, CPR will notify hospital talk groups, as well as fire and EMS intercity talk groups, about the incident and the CHEMPACK deployment through the 800 MHz RISCON radio system. These notifications will include guidance for hospitals to activate decontamination capabilities, to prepare for possible presentations to emergency departments, and guidance on requesting additional CHEMPACK support if patients present. Depending on the nature and size of the incident requiring CHEMPACK deployment, partner notifications may include guidance to EMS about where to transport patients to ensure access to care. After being notified by CPR, the Rhode Island State Police will arrive at the CHEMPACK cache site and will load CHEMPACK assets into their vehicle. The Rhode Island State Police and the cache site will use the transfer of custody form to record transfer of assets from the cache site to the State Police. State Police will then transport CHEMPACK assets along with copies of the transfer of custody form to the requesting party, who may be located at the incident staging area or a hospital emergency department. Upon arrival, Rhode Island State Police will transfer CHEMPACK assets to the requesting party and will complete the transfer of custody form. CHEMPACK assets may be administered in the field. As a reminder, auto-injectors are intended to facilitate administration in different settings, like in the field. When providing patient care, EMS should refer to the Rhode Island statewide EMS protocols, specifically Protocol 4.19 on nerve agent organophosphate toxicity. Ideally, patients would be decontaminated prior to transport to hospital emergency departments. It is essential that EMS notify hospitals that potentially contaminated patients are being transported to them. Depending on the number of patients and the incident location, RIDO may direct EMS to transport patients to specific hospitals that have CHEMPACK assets available. Here we will pause for a brief video on administering autoinjectors.
Hello, my name is Jason Rhodes and I am the Chief of Emergency Medical Services at the Rhode Island Department of Health. I am here today to review the use of autoinjectors. Because a majority of a CHEMPACK container's contents are autoinjectors, and because the specific brands of autoinjector within the containers frequently change, I will address the topic generally and provide instructions applicable to all autoinjectors. First, firmly hold the autoinjector with the green or black tip facing down and the safety cap facing up. Remove the safety cap with your free hand. Aim and firmly jab the green or black tip straight down at a 90-degree angle against the mid-lateral outer thigh. You can inject through the clothing, but make sure the pockets at the injection site are empty. Hold the autoinjector in place for at least 10 seconds. Then after the 10 seconds, remove the autoinjector from the thigh and massage the injection site in a circular motion. Avoiding contact with the needle, carefully discard the autoinjector. Note the time and number of doses administered to the patient.
If hospitals need additional assets to treat patients who present to their emergency departments following a nerve agent incident, these hospitals should contact CPR at 401-222-6911. Clinicians treating patients following a CHEMPACK incident should refer to CDC's medical management guidelines for nerve agents. For additional guidance, clinicians can call Poison Control at 800-222-1222. If a cache site determines a need to deploy CHEMPACK assets internally because patients with symptoms of exposure have presented to their facility, the cache site must promptly notify the Rhode Island Department of Health's Center for Emergency Preparedness and Response at 401-222-6911. The cache site should then follow its CHEMPACK deployment plan to remove assets from the CHEMPACK container and move them to an internal location to provide patient care. We'll pause here to recap what we've learned so far. First, CHEMPACK assets are stored at locations throughout the state to support a local response to nerve agent or organophosphate exposure. Second, CHEMPACK assets can be requested through RIDO's CPER at 401-222-6911. And finally, rapid recognition of nerve agent or organophosphate exposure is critical to the timely use of CHEMPACK assets and protecting the health of exposed people. Now, let's look at an example that illustrates the CHEMPACK request and deployment process from start to finish. On a heavily traveled road, a passenger vehicle fails to stop at an intersection, crashing into a tractor-trailer truck. The truck involved in the crash is a compressed gas tube truck trailer, similar to the truck on the slide. In routine fashion, first responders are dispatched to the incident scene. 2 containers that were being transported on the truck were damaged in the crash, and there is gas leaking from the containers. Dispatch notifies responding units that several people are on the ground in a parking lot and are twitching and vomiting. Responding units arrive on scene and notice a sign on the truck. The sign shows a skull and crossbones and the numbers 1967. There are approximately 30 casualties in the contaminated area. After noticing the sign on the truck, first responders use the U.S. Department of Transportation Emergency Response Guidebook to identify the substance the truck was carrying. The guidebook tells responders that 1967 refers to parathion and compressed gas mixture. This means that the truck was carrying an organophosphate used in agricultural applications. This organophosphate is extremely toxic, and exposure may be fatal. The on-scene incident commander recognizes that this is an unusual situation. While assessing the scene and the casualties, the incident commander suspects organophosphates have been released and radios dispatch to begin a CHEMPACK request. Dispatch receives the CHEMPACK request and forwards it to Regional Control. Regional Control then sends the request to the Rhode Island Department of Health at 401-222-6911. After receiving the request from Regional Control, RIDO communicates with the cache site, the Rhode Island State Police, and hospitals. RIDO tells the cache site to begin their CHEMPACK deployment process and to confirm the pickup location. RIDO then requests that Rhode Island State Police deploy troopers to the cache site pickup location, that they pick up CHEMPACK assets, and that they transport assets to the incident staging area. Finally, RIDO communicates with hospitals to provide situational awareness. In turn, the cache site will notify personnel, including pharmacy and security staff, will locate and secure keys to the CHEMPACK container, will access the CHEMPACK room and unlock the container, will unload container contents, and will then initiate the transfer of custody form. Finally, the cache site will move the CHEMPACK assets to the specified pickup location. The state police arrive at the cache site and receive the transfer of custody form from the cache site personnel. Then, the CHEMPACK assets are loaded into the vehicle and the trooper departs for the incident staging area. The state police arrive with the CHEMPACK assets at the incident staging area and transfer custody of the CHEMPACK assets and ancillary supplies to the incident commander. The transfer of custody form is completed to document the handoff of CHEMPACK assets. The CHEMPACK assets are now on scene. The responders quickly begin treating victims following the Rhode Island statewide emergency medical services protocols. After on-scene decontamination, the victims are transported to hospitals. Patients arrive at the hospital and begin to be treated. Realizing that the hospital's pharmacy is running low on atropine and pralidoxime, the emergency department physician requests CHEMPACK assets by calling the Department of Health at 401-222-6911. RIDO receives the request, forwards it to an appropriate cache site, and contacts the state police to retrieve and deliver the assets to the requesting hospital. This concludes the Rhode Island Department of Health's online CHEMPACK training. Thank you for taking the time to learn about this important emergency response program and resource.